Well, here's a story that I wrote. I wrote it quite a long time ago, but I thought I would read it now so that I could read a bedtime story to my grandchildren that I'm not able to see right now due to this COVID-19 outbreak. The book's called Koko the Owl. Johann lived very close to a forest. He loved to climb trees. There were 2 trees right at the edge of the woods he was allowed to climb. His parents did not want him going into the woods out of sight of his home. Johann really liked climbing a tree that was in the woods a little bit. It was a giant pine tree that had its branches placed just right for climbing. To get to the first branch, you really had to work hard, but Johann knew just where to put his feet and how to swing up onto the first limb. Johann knew this because he would sometimes sneak into the woods to climb this tree. It was so easy to climb, and it had 3 branches close together about halfway to the top. This made a neat place for a look-off. The last time Johann went to climb the giant pine tree, he almost got caught. So he decided this time to be very careful. He decided to go into the woods from a different part of the property. Johann then heard some bushes shake, and there was a very loud thumping. It seemed like some big animal was coming after him. Johann ran very fast without really looking at where he was going, and when he finally stopped, he was out of breath. He tried to hear if anything was chasing him, but all he could hear was his own breathing and a loud thumping inside his chest. His heart was pounding very fast. After he realized he was not being followed, Johann began to walk back towards his house. He walked for a long time, but he did not find the clearing where the house was. He didn't see anything he remembered seeing before. The bushes seemed thicker and stranger, and he started to get very scared. Johann began to sob. He knew crying wouldn't help, but he didn't know what else to do. He was lost. Now every sound was scary. He was very scared. Then Johann heard a very strange who is crying. At first he thought he was hearing things. It wasn't scary. It wasn't scary at all, but it didn't sound like a person. "What's that?" asked Johann as he looked around. "It's only me," a strange voice replied, "and I'm here to help." Johann knew the voice was not a person. He didn't think he was dreaming. He looked all around, but he saw no one. Finally, the voice said, "Up here. I'm up here." Johann looked up, but all he could see was a big brown owl sitting on a tree limb. "Can you talk?" he asked. "Must be me. There's no one else around," replied the owl. "My name is Koko, and I see that you are upset. What is the trouble?" Johann seemed to forget all about his problems. He was so amazed to hear a bird talk. "How come you can talk? Did you learn it in a pet shop?" "A pet shop? Certainly not. I would never allow that to happen to me," said the owl. "There are other reasons an owl might want to talk, and this is one of those times." Koko asked, "What is making you cry?" "I'm lost in these woods and it will be dark soon. I can't find my way home," said Johann. The owl said, "That doesn't seem like a problem to me, but I guess I'm more used to these parts than you. You humans like to be in your homes. To me, that's like being in a pet shop." Koko pointed a wing towards a large tree. "Why don't you sit down beside that lovely large tree, He will make you more comfortable. Johann did as Koko suggested, but asked, "How can a tree make me more comfortable?" The owl said, "The tree can't talk, but he is alive. You can be sure that he won't hurt you. It will be getting cold soon, and you can gather some dry leaves and put them under you and around you, but don't go out of sight of your tree friend." "That's a good idea about the dry leaves, but why not go out of sight of my tree?" Johann said as he began to gather leaves. "Won't your parents and others be looking for you? It would be very hard to find someone who was moving around all the time. You've got to make one spot your base and wait there for help." "Yes, someone will be looking for me soon. I'm already late for supper." Johann already had a lot of leaves gathered around the base of his tree. Koko said, "There are some things you can do besides wait. You can help get found, and you can make yourself more comfortable." "Help get found? How do I do that?" asked Johann. "Well, there are things you can do to help searchers know where you are." If there was a large open area, you could make 3 piles of brush, or any signal of 3, which could be seen from above. Since there is no open area here, that won't work. For this place, you can set up some arrows pointing to your tree. Point arrows from different directions. You can use dead branches or stones to make the arrows. Johann walked as far as he could without losing sight of his tree. He began building a big arrow from branches he found lying on the ground. Koko followed him and was perched on a low limb. "Koko, how will these arrows help? Anyone who is here can see my tree, and I can holler at them." "That's true," said Koko, "but you might be sleeping and the searchers might not be close enough to your tree to find you, especially if you're covered with leaves." "Yeah, you are right. What are the 3 piles of brush for? Should I make them too?" Johann finished the first arrow. 3 is a well-known signal for help or lost. 3 of anything. 3 whistles, 3 piles of brush, 3 smoke signals, anything searchers can see or hear. 3 brush piles or other signals that could be seen from the air would help searchers find you, but there is no space here big enough for that. So it won't help in this place. Koko followed Johann to the next spot where he began to build another arrow. Johann built 3 more arrows, all pointing to his tree base. "You've done a good job there. That should be enough. Why don't you go to your base and we'll see what provisions you have." Koko winged off towards the tree. Johann walked to his base and said, "What do you mean provisions?" "Things you have with you that can help make you more comfortable," said Koko. Johann looked disappointed. "I don't have any provisions." "Maybe you're right, but let's check anyway. What have you got in your pockets?" Johann emptied out his pockets, laying the contents on his knee. There was a quarter, an elastic band, some string, a crumpled up note, and a small ball. "See," he said, "nothing that helps." Koko thought for a moment and he said, "You have some interesting items here. I'm sure you'll find them useful. The quarter might be able to reflect sun. If it's a sunny day tomorrow and an aircraft flies over, you can try reflecting the sun back at the plane. Yeah, if a plane flies low enough. Anything else useful? Asked Johann. It's all useful, even the crumpled piece of paper, said Koko. Keep the paper dry, and you may be able to start a fire in the morning. You might be able to light it with the sun shining through your glasses onto the paper. The other stuff you can use to make a toy. Make a toy? Asked Johann. Koko said, the hardest problem you will have tonight will be keeping your mind off of your problem. It's getting dark now, but it probably will stay light enough for a while for you to try to invent a toy. At least for a while. Why don't you snuggle down by your tree now? Keep some of those leaves under you and gather the rest around you. Johann snuggled at the base of his tree and covered himself as best he could with leaves. The leaves didn't seem to be warm at first, but after a while he was fairly comfortable. Playing with the string, the elastic, and the ball did help keep his mind off being lost. After a while, he fell off to sleep. It got colder through the night, and he woke because of the cold. Some of the leaves had fallen away, and he tried to pull him closer. Johann called for Koko, but he did not hear a reply. It was too dark to play with the items. Johann began to worry and sobbed himself back to sleep. The next time Johann woke, it was beginning to get light out, and he was not so nervous. He called the name for Koko, but he heard no reply. Johann pulled the leaves closer and wondered if his family was out looking for him. Suddenly, Johann heard noises. It sounded like some kind of animal coming towards him. He cowered down, trying to hide in the leaves by the tree. Then Johann heard a loud shout. Hey, everybody, I found something. I think it's an arrow. Now Johann could hear a lot of shouting and the noise of many people running through the woods. Someone shouted, There he is! One of his neighbors was the first to arrive, but his father came soon after and picked him up and hugged him. After a lot of hugging, the whole crowd headed for home. Johann was so happy to be found and heading home. He wanted to tell his father about Koko, but he knew no one would believe him. Even he was not really sure it wasn't a dream. Soon, Johann noticed the woods start to thin, and he could see a clearing coming up ahead. Just as they came into the clearing, one of the searchers shouted, Look up in the air! And everyone looked up at a huge brown owl soaring overhead. Koko! Johann blurted. Johann's father said, You'll get all the hot chocolate you want whenever we get home. I hope you enjoyed Koko the Owl. And there's lessons in there to be learned. So, what are those lessons? Text me. Bye for now.